when we got, especially when winter time comes around.
Exactly.
That was
That's
what
our
I'm concerned
issue.
about too.
Yeah.
I would prefer to be
Where-
here in person.
Yeah,
don't
where
get
do you
me
live?
wrong.
Where do you live?
We're in Newmarket.
Oh,
We're
We're in Newmarket.
area.
Newmarket.
Same area, yeah.
Well, like I say, I'll give you a little bit of history of what transpired. And obviously, beginning the middle of 2 years ago, was it? Middle of my class, we had to switch over to Zoom. And of course, during the whole time of the pandemic, we were stuck with Zoom. So for the rest of that year and then this past year, it was all done on Zoom throughout the course of the pandemic. It's not ideal for you. You know, being together and seeing other people going through it and creating some kind of connection. Capacity, and maybe we'll get the big screen working next week. We can do that when there's a real issue. And so what it'll mean is snow days might mean I'll let everybody know that you're going to have to, everybody's in it.
Right.
Right? That's at least something that we can take into account. But most of the time we're going to try and meet here in person. Are you hearing me okay? Okay, good. All right. We have a question?
For the Shabbat service, does it have to be in the synagogue always?
For Shabbat, again,
Just because it's sometimes difficult, you know, to do it to them.
I understand. You have to talk to your sponsoring rabbi.
Okay.
Let me, although some of the rabbis don't get it straight after 20-some years that I've been teaching this class, they still don't always get it straight. I teach this class. Okay? And this is the content part of your education. A mile wide and a half an inch deep. Okay. Personal issues, less, you know, if it's something that everybody's affected by, then maybe you can ask about it in class. But really, personal situations are really for you to talk with your sponsor. In a few weeks of what I call my practice test, just so you have an idea of what kind of tests I'm going to throw at you. I'm lazy, so I don't do essays. They're almost always multiple choice or fill in the blank, true, false, A, B, C, or D, or both, all of the above, none of the above, some of the above, that sort of thing. Okay. You're not supposed to miss more than 5 classes. If you have to miss a class and you can do it on Zoom, fine. All right, that'll count as an attendance as long as it was because you had no choice. Okay. I will also, after I get a full list of the class and I have a roll that I can just call out your names, and I will still pass around a sheet every week to see where you went to synagogue. Now, again, you have to talk to your sponsoring rabbi about what he or she wants you to do in terms of synagogue attendance. When I sponsor somebody, I don't have a synagogue now, so I have no skin to lose or anything. But even then, when I had my own synagogue and I may or may not have students that I was sponsoring, I always like to tell people, go to different synagogues. No 2 synagogues are exactly alike. They all have their personality. And some people like a synagogue that's more formal. They like the choir. They like that sort of situation, a big synagogue. They feel comfortable getting lost in it, as it were. Some like a small, intimate congregation where, you know, if you sneeze, everybody knows you sneezed. Okay. And if you go out to the little boys' room and the little girls' room during the middle of the services, they'll know you went out. That's fine. And that's also the way I teach. I'm going to teach Judaism. It's sponsored by the Conservative Rabbis, the Rabbinical Assembly in Ontario. You're supposed to be sponsored by a conservative rabbi in order to attend this. But I try to make it clear that I'm talking about Judaism in general. You will discover that the old story, two Jews, you got three opinions. Two rabbis, there's at least four opinions. Okay, and we differ on what we think in many places and many terms. So I will try not to propagandize you towards my perspective. I can't help it. I'm a human being, it'll come through. I am very strong a traditionalist. I'm a very strong traditionalist, which makes me an outlier today in the conservative movement. Okay? And maybe as we go through the course of the year, you'll see some of my objectionable positions on things. But I take it with humor, I hope. Okay? Because I'm here to teach you. I don't care what you do, who your rabbi is, what synagogue you attend, you go to the Reform, you go to the Conservative, you go Orthodox. That to me doesn't matter. I'm here to teach you what it means to be a Jew. And the various definitions of that will come across in the course of the year. Your rabbi, your sponsoring rabbi, will have demands that they want to make of you. And so please, consult with them on these issues. Now, for example, the couple that lives in Kingston over here, I don't expect them to show up here in shul every Friday night and Shabbos morning. But you better go to shul there in town. It's a nice little synagogue. Okay. Okay, good. We seem to have all that information there. All righty. It's coffee, not bourbon. I have to drive home. If we weren't driving home, maybe it could be bourbon. All right. Oh, that's another thing. You have to live with my humor or lack thereof. My family has gotten used to it. I'll let you know a little something about me. As indicated, my name is Martin. How I got the name Martin, don't ask me. Jeffrey Berman. Menachem Yosef Ben Tzvi Ze'ev, although my father originally had only his Yiddish name, so Herschel Wolf, but all of his sons changed to the Hebrew form of it. And believe it or not, I'm an American from Jacksonville, Florida. I grew up in the conservative movement and did attend undergraduate at Yeshiva University, which is an Orthodox school, and went to the JTS, Jewish Theological Seminary, which most of your rabbis will have attended, and became a rabbi and had pulpits in different parts of the United States and came here in 1994. I think everybody here was at least born then, no?
Yeah, barely.
Apparently, 94. Apparently. Well, as I get older, it seems that most of the people in these classes get younger. I expect you to be, now 5 years old. I don't. And okay. So I'm going to actually share your backgrounds too in a minute. Okay, but I'm going to let you know how deep I want you to go as possible. I'm one of 5 kids. We all grew up in a conservative synagogue. I'm the oldest. My brother Yisrael goes by Yisrael now. Lives in Israel. He's at an Orthodox yeshiva there. He's been there for 20-something years. 20? No, 73. No, 74. So he was there already before 74. He's been living there. He now has 10 children and over 50 grandchildren, at least 1 or 2 great-grandchildren. Okay. Now I have 3 kids, 2 boys, a girl, and I've got 9 grandchildren and 1 on the way. Okay. So he's a very right-wing Orthodox rabbi. The next one in line, my sister Shirley, had been married to somebody who wasn't Jewish. She's a sort of observed, once in a while she goes to the synagogue. There's a family affair going on. Okay. Then my sister Louise, her husband had been president of the Orthodox synagogue, so they're very involved in the Orthodox synagogue. And Todd, the youngster, my 16 years younger brother, is what we call modern Orthodox in Israel, Dati Le'umi, He's got 8 kids, 7 girls and 1 boy. My son has got 6 boys and 1 girl. So she's the princess there. Okay. And so that's, I cover a wide span, and my kids are basically Orthodox today. Because they grew up in a very traditional conservative home. We sent them mostly to Orthodox day schools for the most part, and that's where they took their direction. Okay, so Shani. Chini.
Yes.
Okay, what does that name come from?
It doesn't really. My father made it up.
Okay,
So
that's fine. That's
I'm
the
one of a
thing
kind.
today. A lot of people make up names. Okay, Chini. So where are you from?
I'm from Alberta originally. And I grew up in Alberta, went to university in Alberta, lived in Calgary finally, and then moved to Toronto in 1996. I have 5 children, 3 grandchildren, and I think the best way to describe part of why I'm here, and one of the rabbis that I was interviewing, and they were interviewing me at sponsorship, is that I've been a permanent resident, but now I want to be a citizen. And that's where you want to hear his story?
A little bit, because after all, he's here with you.
Yeah.
My name is Lauren Brucker. I grew up in Toronto. I have a younger brother and older sister. My older sister lives in Israel and also has umpteen grandchildren.
17.
Yes,
That's a good number.
it's a decent number. I've lived most of my life in Toronto. I grew up in the conservative movement, and I'm here with Jeannie.
Okay. Who's next in line there? That's who would be Valeria?
Yes.
Is that how you pronounce it, Valeria? Okay.
So my background Russian. I grew up here, but my childhood was in Israel. My grandparents was there.
So I take it your mother was not Jewish?
No, my grandfather.
So you're from Russia, or
From
from
Moscow.
Moscow? Oh, okay, real Russian. See, I'm Ukrainian. My background is Ukrainian.
That's fine.
Yeah, as long as you don't throw bombs, as long as you don't throw bombs at each other. Right? This is total peace here. No. Okay, is there somebody else in your life that's why you're converting?
I have one daughter.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Hi, I'm Kay Spiller, originally from Australia. I immigrated into Canada in 1990. I have 1 daughter and 2 grandsons, one 17, one 9 years old. And the reason I'm here is actually not because of him, but it sounds really bad, but it's true. I've carried for the past 60 years some effects of Judaism that's affected my life quite markedly, I would say, over those 60 years, and I've carried that with me the whole of that time. The people that I used to be accountable to, i.e. parents, brothers, family, that sort of stuff, have all now passed on. And so I made the decision it was my time with my spirituality to move forward with Judaism. This was the trigger, this man here. We met about 10 months ago, and I had no clue that he was Jewish. He didn't say anything, neither did he have to. But when I started asking questions, he was quite amazed at the depth of the information I was trying to glean from. But he has never asked me once to convert because of him. We are partners right now. We will be married probably in September of next year. And Beth Emmett has a vacation going to Israel the 30th of October, which will end up being a honeymoon.
I can
Well,
think-
thank you.
Yeah. Are we-
It's the old girl and the old guy, right? Okay.
Well, I still think you're younger than I am.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
We'll do it separately. We'll check later. We
Chat
don't,
later.
yeah, but see, you got Australian memories, and I got American memories, so maybe they chime. I don't know.
My name is Hercules Bean. I am here because of eight this. My family were actually founding members of the synagogue. My sisters and myself were married here. My mother had her funeral here. Yeah, my children had their bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvah here. So we've been around since Rabbi Kelman days when this was just starting. So very familiar with the shul and procedures here. I was obviously raised in a conservative Jewish family. My father's family has been in Canada since turning the 20th century. My mother, they got out just before the war. So we don't really have much family on my mother's side, but on my father's side, it's quite extensive. And so I have three children. My oldest, my daughter-in-law, she converted. They live in Winnipeg, and we have we have triplets, two boys, well, not two, sometimes the accent is two. Two girls and a boy. And as Kay said, when we first started dating, I looked at somebody for who they are, not what their faith is. You know, you can be a good person regardless, or you can be a bad person regardless, doesn't matter. And it's very true, when Kay was thinking about conversion, I never once said to her, I want you to do it. This is something she decided she wanted to do, and go from there.
So I guess, Tommy.
So, well, contrary to here, with myself, I didn't have really a partner that was Jewish. I kind of wanted to convert myself, because I had a few miracles, unlikely things that happened in my life, after praying or something. And so I started converting Reform, but I went to Israel 2 months ago, and then I saw the Harry Dean and the Western Wall and the more Orthodox Jews, and I just thought, because I'm LGBT, and I wasn't sure whether I could convert conservative, but then I read about it and it's fine. And yeah, pretty much that's happened.
Okay.
So, hi, my name is Adam. Well, I'm from Morocco originally, came to Canada 7-8 years ago, something like that. And well, I'm here because obviously, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm gonna convert. I'm just that's it. And yeah, so I came at first I was in Montreal, then 2 years ago we moved to Toronto.
My name is Jake Mandel. I was born and raised in Toronto. I'm the grandson of two Holocaust survivors. My grandmother was a survivor of Auschwitz, my grandmother of Bergen-Belsen. So Judaism has been integral in my life since I was born, and my grandfather recently passed away 2 years ago in '97. So I've just learned so much from him, and I sort of brought that life of mine into Adriana's life, and she's kind of been inspired by it, and we've been learning about it together more and more. And so here to learn more, and again, here for her to support her.
Adriana.
Adriana. I was born in Toronto. I've lived here all my life. I was raised Catholic, but I'm Orthodox, technically Christian, because I'm Armenian and Bulgarian, so Eastern European. As Jake said, like I have lots of friends who are Jewish and we've been dating for the past 2.5 years. And I spent a lot of time with his family and kind of was inspired to start the conversion process. Because obviously we're planning on moving forward in our lives together. And yeah, I guess
Okay.
Hello, I'm Jonathan. It's nice to meet all of you. So I'm born Jewish on my father's side, so I'm like Jewish. And the rabbi that I connected with, her name's Robin. Thank you. Can you say that one more time?
Prior Bodson.
Prior Bodson, thank you. Yeah, I memorize that. So she let me know that like the process I should go through is not conversion but confirmation, and I'm going to be confirming my faith and go through whatever process that is. I wanted to, and I had like my upbringing. My dad, like the first until I was like 10 years old, I got very like anecdotal education on Judaism. Lots of stuff I've been like, I bring it up to another Jew and they're like, that's not a Jewish thing. And so I have to like question what I know in Judaism and not just like make a like put my foot in my mouth. And I thought this was a great experience to be able to learn the ropes, see like the history, just like everything. I think this was like very it's very well rounded. So I'm here. I really want to learn. And I guess, yeah, I have a little sister. She's great. She's awesome. She's super smart. And yeah, that's it.
I'll go first. I'm one converting. I'm Joseph. I was born in the Philippines, but when I was 1, I lived in Singapore until I was 7, and then we immigrated here as a family. I grew up Catholic. My mom was pretty religious, but I wasn't really that connected. I do go to church and whatnot, but didn't mean nothing to me. But I'm here because Judaism is actually a big part of Daniela's life, and it's something that's very important for her and for her family. And it's something that I want to get closer with and understand and bring into my life so that we can have a more connected life together in the future.
Hi, I'm Daniela. I was born in Israel. When I was 4. I actually went to Orthodox shul, like I went to a Chabad shul like most of my life. My dad is very traditional. I'm the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor. I went to public school and I went to Jewish private school for high school.
Chad?
Yeah. I went to chat and I was really immersed in Judaism, and it's a big part of my life. And I want to share that with Joseph. And
When were you? What years were you in chat?
I graduated in 2015.
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm from Argentina. My partner Star, we've been together for 8 years. We got engaged this year, right? Yeah. Because of COVID year, you miss out some years. And yeah, we've been together for 8 years, and now we just want to go through this journey together. He's from Israel, so he will introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Sar. I was born in Israel. I moved to Europe when I was 10 with my parents, and then moved all over Europe and kind of lost touch of my Jewish roots a bit. And my grandma was in Auschwitz in Holocaust. My granddad was in World War II. And I've seen all the Jewish family reunions and everything until I was 10. After that, since we kind of went to England, France, Scotland, and then finally to Canada, kind of lost my Jewish roots, and kind of came back to it with her, since it was important for her that our future kids would be Jewish. So it was her who wanted to come here and convert. So I'm here to support her.
All right. Okay, you guys want to try and, I think it might come through, okay?
Yeah, sure. Hi, so my name's Alex. I'm originally from upstate New York, and it's funny that the permanent resident analogy was made because I'm a permanent resident here in Canada. And I am here today partly to reclaim my heritage. My mom's family actually were conversos centuries ago in Portugal. So it's definitely something that is really personal to me, and I just also happen to marry someone who is also Jewish. This is my wife, Natasha. So it was important to me, when we inevitably do think about family to, have one unified, cohesive unit.
I'm Natasha. I grew up Jewish. I'm also the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. My entire family immigrated to Mexico after the Holocaust. And they live there still, except for my mom and I, who immigrated to Canada when I was young. I wasn't super in touch with my Jewish heritage kind of through my late teens and early adulthood. So I'm here to support Alex on his journey, but also really excited to embrace a Jewish education now that I'm old enough to kind of understand why it's so important. So I'm really looking forward to the course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for sharing with us. Since I'm see how old I am, I'm taping it. Since we're recording this, and I will send out the information to you about how to get to the you have a YouTube section from last 2 years, and this will be posted there. And when you can't make the class, if you can't make on the video that day, you'll be able to pick it up within a couple of days after the class. Okay. I want to make a couple of things clear because I was very happy to hear some of you say, the partner didn't push for the individual to convert. And that's important. Jewish tradition really says that you're not allowed to convert for the sake of marriage, because it's really a personal choice. You're accepting upon yourself all of what it means to be a Jew, however you want to define it, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. But it has to be of your own free will, and not because you're in love with somebody. I remember I've had students over the course of the years who broke up with a partner during the course of the course and continued on and converted. Okay? And that's a sure sign that they were, at least by the time they reached that point in the studies, it really was for them. I say to people, especially if I'm on the Beit Din at the mikveh, that, as was expressed, you don't have to be Jewish. There's nothing wrong with not being Jewish. As a matter of fact, there are probably lots of advantages. And the rabbis of old said that all the world has a share in the world to come, whatever that means, whatever after this. If you lead a good life, a decent life, and you obey certain basic rules of living, that's all that's required of a Gentile. Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach, we call the 7 commandments of the sons of Noah, the children of Noah. But if you want to be a Jew, you step out of that mikveh, it's not 7 mitzvot, it's 613 mitzvot, the traditional counting. There are only about 64 or 5 that apply today. But that's irrelevant to the fact that if you take it seriously, if it's really meaningful to you, that which you did yesterday, which was perfectly okay, becomes absolutely forbidden today, perhaps. You wanted to work on Shabbat on Saturday, you wanted to go to the movie theater on Saturday, go to the football game or whatever it is, on Saturday, fine. You step out of the mikveh, it's now Shabbat. And it's between you and God on how you observe the Shabbat. It is not just Saturday. It's not a work day. It's not a game day. That's the ultimate goal. It must be for yourself. I'm sure if you spoke to the rabbis, they told you that this is the whole procedure. This is the conservative under the conservative movement. It would be recognized by the reform movement, our conversions. It would be recognized by many other liberal groups in the world. It most likely will not be recognized by the Orthodox. It has semi recognition in the state of Israel. If you decided to move to Israel after you've gone through our conversion process, you can be accepted as a Jew as far as the state of Israel is concerned, not the religious authorities, not with the rabbinate. Okay? But we've had students who, all right, so they've got Israel, they hurried up and finished the process. They gave them, quote, an Orthodox conversion in Israel. So we've had a couple of cases like that. So they recognize that at least our course of study and what we ask of you are serious. And some people have gone on to have Orthodox conversions after they've gone through our process. There was a young woman, now Hadassah, she was Sophia then, and she studied with me. This is many years ago. She ended up becoming almost part of my family. She eventually went and had an Orthodox conversion, jumped through all kinds of hoops for that. She has now 2 nice children in Woodmere, Long Island. Okay, and we get together occasionally. We're good friends with my son and daughter-in-law. Okay. And he's teaches at YU and Gemara at YU. Okay. So, you know, the course you take, the path you take in your life is up to you, and you will make it through there. Some of you got an email from me with a essay about language. I'll send it out again, and to those who didn't get it, yeah, I think it's a wonderful read because we live in the United States or in Canada or in Europe and South America. Those are all really civilizations that are Christian. You know, we can quibble and we fight in courts, and you know, and the United States has separation of church and state, but the English language is a language that's very much affected by Christianity. Can't help it. And terms and terminology that we use has been, I won't say, it's been infused with Christian ideas. Not even if it was not intentional by somebody, right? Not a question of intent. It's just the reality of the language and the history of the majority population. For example, if I use the word grace, God's grace, would anybody take, you know, it gives you kind of chills. It is a legitimate translation, a nice Hebrew word, chesed, but we don't say grace. You know, God's grace. We say God's chesed, which, how would you best translate in English? Well, you know, grace, but grace has got a very Christian tone to it. All right? Furthermore, there's, especially today, the scholars have really been arguing, is there such a thing as Judaism? What is Judaism? Well, the standard answer is it's the religion of the Jews, the Jewish religion, however you want to phrase it. But religion is a relatively modern concept, and it's a Christian concept. Nowhere in Jewish literature, at least the ancient Jewish literature, do we have a word for religion. We have law, we have words like holy, kadosh, Shabbat observance, mitzvot, averot, using an English word for it, sins. But there is no ancient Hebrew word found in the Talmud for religion. There's dat, but dat has more of the meaning of a way of doing things. I've contemplated writing a book. I probably never will, I'm too lazy, but taking what I've been teaching over the years, and I would title it not Judaism, Introduction to Judaism, Judaism, but Introduction to J-E-W-ism, Jewism. Because in essence, Judaism is really what Jews do. There have been attempts to codify beliefs. Maimonides' most famous source of that is 13 Articles of Faith. But they weren't all accepted by everybody originally. And even today, people can argue about some of them, although in the Orthodox world, it's pretty much taken as granted that is the case. But I'll give you a great example. Maimonides, let me take a step back. One of the problems of teaching a course on Judaism is that in order to talk about A, you have to know what B is. In order to know what B is, you have to know what C is. But in order to know what C is, you have to know what A is. You know, they all get mixed in together. So there will be words and terms that I will throw out. If you don't understand them, throw something at me, or at least raise your hand to let me know, and I will try and make sure that I clarify it for you. And there will be certain figures, certain individuals, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, Rabbi Moses, the son of Maimon, who is also called Maimonides. I-D-E-S on the end means son of Maimon. Also known by the initials of his name, Reish Rabbi Mem Moshe Bet, son of Maimon, is Rambam. Okay, all of those. I will throw his name out around many times. You can't talk about this Jewish practice without referring to Maimonides or the Rambam, and they're both as one and the same individual. So you will hear, let's get it right now. The Rambam, Maimonides, learn that name. Just kind of put in your head.
How do you spell that?
Well, Maimonides is M-A-I-M-O-N-I-D-E-S. Maimon, I-D-E-S is the son of. Now, that's not to say that Gershonides isn't important, and the Ramban Nachmanides isn't important, and Rashi isn't important. We like the course of Jewish history came very prominent to use initials. All right.
It says Rambam, right?
Yeah, Rambam, Rabbi. All right, there's the R. That's why I like to have the chalkboard up there. All right. Rabbi Reish Mem Moshe Bet, son of Mem Sophie Rambam. Okay. Okay. And Maimonides is in the 11th century. Okay. And starts out in Spain, ends up in Egypt. Maimon, M-A-I-M-O-N-I-D-E-S. I'm sure if you put it into the computer, they'll say, "You mean?" And I'll get it to you. That's one. By the way, the great benefit today of the computers. But when you go online, be very careful to understand where you're going on what website you're going to. There are very good websites, and there are websites that are meant to attract Jews to Christianity. Okay, so be very careful when you have a question about a website. But there are wonderful things on it. I'll give you some sources that you should think might be able to access. One of them being something called Sefaria, SEFARIA.com. It has on hand Jewish books in Hebrew and in English, many more Hebrew, but also a lot of English, the Bible translated to English. We ask you to purchase your own Bible and things like that to have available to you, but these are also available online like that now. Okay, and I'll try to remember to send that out, information as well. All right, so getting back to Judaism, it really is hard to define it that way. One of the great modern scholars of Jewish life, Mordechai Kaplan, who was the founder of what was known as Reconstructionism, defined Judaism, I think the best way it's ever been defined. It is the Jewish civilization. Judaism is the Jewish civilization. What is a civilization? It's language, it's customs, it's laws, it's art, it's all of food, culture, all of these things together. That's what Judaism is. So I don't like his theology, but I love the Jewish civilization. Judaism as a civilization. I think that's one of the best definitions of it. Because what you're going to come across, if you haven't already, there are people who say the only people who can be Jews have to have black hats, white shirts, and payas down to their nose, down there under the chin, and the tzitzis dragging on the floor. Otherwise, you know, or if you're female, of course, it's got to be sleeves down to here and the dress down to the floor, that sort of thing. That's the only Jew. And if you're not converted by somebody who is like that, sorry, Charlie, you don't make the grade. Then you will find people who say, you can't convert, you can't. There's no way you can become a Jew. You have to be born a Jew. Now, that person may not do anything Jewish except bagels and lox on Sunday mornings, but you will come across people whose entire Jewish life is purely cultural aspects, and they say it's impossible to become a Jew. As silly as that may be. And you have people in between, all kinds. You will have people, no matter who, what rabbi, whatever conversion process you go through, you'll have those who will salute you and those who will cast aspersions upon you. You will also find that if you live up to the expectations of what the rabbis here in this community of conservative rabbis expect of you, you will find born Jews who say, you don't need to do that. Yeah, I don't do that. Why do you have to do that? Yeah, I don't go to synagogue every Shabbos. Why do you have to go to synagogue every Shabbos? Because the rabbis want you to jump through hoops. No, we want you to want to go. We want you to want to go to shul every Shabbos. And that's why I said at the beginning, you know, find the shul that speaks to you. That's one of the I daven. By the way, that's another caveat I have to throw out. You're going to have to learn several languages in the course of this trip. Obviously, you're going to have to listen to my English, my American English, with a slight Southern accent once in a while. We are going to teach you how to read Hebrew, so you can hopefully, so that you can participate in synagogue services. And that's later on in the course of the year. You will hear some Yiddish thrown out. Can't help it. I'm of Eastern European ancestry, so Yiddish gets into the mix of things. There's also Aramaic, but don't worry about that too much. But that Aramaic is what the Kaddish is recited. Yitgadel v'Kadesh Me'Rabbah is Aramaic, not Hebrew. Although most people who go to the synagogue won't know the difference. All right. And sometimes what we call Yinglish. Yiddish and English thrown together. Also, there are two major pronunciations for Hebrew in modern days. There's what we call the Ashkenazic pronunciation and what we call the Sephardic pronunciation. They are not necessarily adequate descriptions. Essentially, Ashkenazic pronunciation is the pronunciation that was used by the Jews of Europe, France, Germany, England, and moving to the eastern parts of Europe. The Sephardic pronunciation was used by Jews of Spain and North Africa in the Middle East. Edot HaMizrach is they're referred to. Shorthand Sephardic, but it's much more complex than that. The major difference is certain letters will have a T in it in Ashkenazic Sephardic pronunciation, while in the Ashkenazic pronunciation it'll become an S sound. So, for example, the word Shabbat is Shabbos. It's also Sabbath. And the reason why it's Sabbath, to jump ahead a little bit, why it's not Shabbath, I don't know. But Sabbath was because the Greeks, when they heard the Hebrew, that which we distinguish either being a T or an S sound today, was probably a TH sound. So Greeks heard Sabbath. They didn't hear Shabbat. They heard Shabbat or Shabbath. They heard Shabbat. And that's probably how it was pronounced then. And so that's how we got all these names of things in the Bible that have TH endings on it, because it is influenced by the Greek translation of the Bible. The Septuagint, which you don't need to remember right now. So, but again, whenever I say something that you don't get, you don't understand or what have you, please let me know and I will try to slow down, try to translate, find a way of explaining what I just got through saying. Okay? Like I said, theoretically, what we do is we offer you the choice. You can go 50 minutes and take a break, or you can take about an hour, 2 hours, no, it's been 7:30 to 9:15, give or take an hour and 45 minutes without a break in the middle. And since we got the Zooming involved with this, it's probably better that way. If you need to go out for some reason, whatever, that's fine. And hopefully it'll get some coffee set up for us for next week or weeks ahead, or tea, what have you. All right. So now, if Judaism or Jewishism isn't really a religious catechism kind of thing, and we define it as a civilization, what makes it part of the civilization is a people, right? The culture of a people, of a nation. And so Judaism is the culture of the Jewish people. How do you get to be part of a people? Now, what I like to suggest is, before there were clear-cut borders, and you had, it goes back a long time because they wanted to get money for crossing borders with goods. But if you wanted to move to Ireland 1,000 years ago, and you made a deal and you got some property in Ireland, you were able to live in Ireland, were you Irish? Not really, but I bet your grandchildren were. Did you have to go through a formal process of becoming Irish? No. You lived there, you adopted the practices, you went to the church, or if it's earlier, the pagan temple of earlier days in that community. And eventually you become absorbed into that people. It's clear that in ancient Israel, that's probably all there was. You moved to Israel or Judea, Samaria, whatever it was, for a few hundred years. You were an outsider, you were a stranger, but your kids grew up with the other neighbors' kids, and they fought with the neighbors' kids or played with the neighbors' kids, and back and forth. People got married. That was it. Only when Jews left the land of Israel and were no longer a majority where they were, was there a perceived need to have some kind of entry into being a Jew. We can't say for sure when that happened. When we read the book of Ruth in the spring, because that's one of the things we do is we go through the whole book of Ruth, you will see the rabbis were a bit perplexed because there's no mention there clearly of her converting to Judaism. Nowhere will you find this. Oh yeah, Ruth went to the rabbis in this community and she took a course for 6 months or 2 years or 3 years or what have you. And they asked her a bunch of questions and then she went to the mikveh and yeah, she's Jewish. Well, there's a passage there when she says to Naomi, where you go, I will go, your God will be my God, where you will be buried, I will be buried, which the rabbis do play games with to make it sound like she converted in a sense. Certainly she accepted to be part of the community. But I always love when I read the book of Ruth to a class, and we will do it. Every time Ruth is mentioned for almost the entire book, in case you forget, she's a Moabite. It's not just Ruth, it's Ruth the Moabite. Yes.
It's a Moabite.
Somebody from Moab. And the Torah says a Moabite cannot convert to Judaism. Okay. And the rabbi said, but the scholars there knew that was only talking about the men, the women could. But again, was that reading into history or not, right? But at some point, probably after between 586 BCE and the beginning of the Common Era, there became the practice of having a formal entry into the Jewish people, which finally was established by the rabbis as nothing but study, by the way. You would go to a rabbi and you say, you want to convert. And you say, you know, the Jews are having it so hard now, and we're powerless, and we're scattered, and we're beaten, and we're frowned upon. Do you really want to throw your lot in with us? And if the person says, even so, even though I want to be a Jew, you take him to the mikveh. Right? If he's a man, he has to be circumcised, and then wait a few days, and you take him to the mikveh. The woman, you take her to the mikveh. And then you go and learn. Well, we don't, everybody changed that part. You have to learn first. So, basically today, what it means to be a Jew has one overwhelming common definition. You're either born of a Jewish mother or you convert to Judaism. In the Reform movement, they now say if either parent is Jewish, we will accept you as being Jewish as long as you identify Jewishly. That's not the standard of the conservative, the Orthodox world. The state of Israel is in a flux because in Israel you've got an identity as an Israeli citizen, and then there's this other identity as being a Jew, and they're not necessarily one and the same. There are Muslim and Christian individuals who are Israelis. Right? They serve the state of Israel. There are judges, there are ambassadors and everything like that who are not Jewish. Then you have the phenomenon that really has taken place since the mass emigration from Russia to Israel, in which the state of Israel would accept you as long as you had a Jewish grandparent. Why? Because that's what Hitler said. In essence, it's good enough for Hitler, it's good enough for us. Okay? But then now, because the civil authorities will happy to put a stamp that you're Jewish if you meet certain criteria, but the rabbinic courts are not going to give you that geschwanka. They say, well, if your mother's not Jewish, you've got to convert. And you got to convert under our auspices, what we consider to be the proper conversion. So that becomes problems. You can serve in the army, you can get killed might not be able to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. So there are lots of issues there and lots of problems, and we're not going to solve those tonight, or actually ever here in this room anyway. The Israelis will eventually, I don't know, 1,000 years from now, who knows what it will look like. But I don't think the religious definition of it is going to go away. What we have in North America and in Europe, as Jews have become more and more integrated into the general community, it's becoming harder and harder to define the lines and understand where the boundaries are. But those who are going, I believe, now I'm speaking as a rabbi and as my own belief, those who are going to remain part of the Jewish people outside of the land of Israel will only be able to do so through a religious identification. I believe that. I can't say, I got proof, but that's what I believe. Because anything less than that is nice, but I grew up in the States. In the States, you have Thanksgiving. Everybody had Thanksgiving. The Jewish schools had Thanksgiving. Here, Thanksgiving in Jewish schools? What is this? First of all, amongst other things, at least in the States, Thanksgiving comes into the end of October. Here it comes in November. Here it comes in October, and it's almost always around Sukkot time, and we've already had all these big meals for Sukkot. Who wants to have another big meal? And there's the myth of the pilgrims coming to North America, which is all mythological, most of it. But everybody identifies with it. I mean, there are some in Orthodox circles that don't, but it's an accepted part and parcel of being an American. Doesn't take away from your being Jewish. But as more and more the outside culture becomes more and more how you identify yourself, unless you got an anchor in something that is more than personal likes, dislikes, the harder it is to maintain your identity as a Jew and your children's identity as a Jew. And it was one way to put it, what's the definition of a Jew? Somebody whose grandchildren are Jewish. Think about that. Okay. So this process that we're doing now is to take and find a way for you to enter into being part of the Jewish people. When we talk about Judaism, there's a big terminology, the Judeo-Christian heritage, right? You've heard that, right? Judeo-Christian heritage. Fact of the matter is, Judaism is much closer to Islam than it is to Christianity. We have much more in common in terms of outlook towards certain aspects of life. Christians have you believe. As long as you got the belief, that's what's most important. Paul says, that once you've got law causes sin. If cause sin is the problem. But believe, and you'll be saved. Jews say, yeah, it's nice to believe, but you got to do. And Islam has also ideas that you have certain things you're supposed to do, certain acts you're supposed to do. That's an important element of it. Islamic law, not necessarily the particulars, but the idea of Islamic law is similar in Judaism. We have that. But so now, how are we going to define anchor this now? Franz Rosenzweig, a German Jewish philosopher of the 20th century, emphasized that there were three pillars in Judaism: Torah and Israel, God, Torah, and Israel. Right? That's found in the Talmud. The idea there's God, there's Torah, and by Israel, we mean the Jewish people. You know, when I use the word Israel, unless I'm talking, I'll be clear if I'm talking about the state of Israel. That's a political identity. Israel is the name of the Jewish people. B'nai Yisrael. What?
The Israelites, like.
Yeah, they're usually translated in English translations, Israelites, okay? Or the Hebrews. B'nai Yisrael, sons, children of Israel. Okay? So he has a work which is very difficult to read. I don't recommend it unless you're really into heavy duty German philosophy. He wrote a work called the Star of Redemption. And so he plays with these three concepts of God, Torah, and Israel. And then they relate to each other through the actions of creation, revelation, and redemption. So you have God. God creates the Torah. God is the source for Torah. God chose Israel. Israel observes the Torah. So that's one triangle. And so then it's expressed, there's creation. God creates the world, the universe. He reveals his will at Sinai. And the hope is for the future redemption of the Messiah, the Messianic age. So he plays a nice little game, makes a 6-pointed star out of those things. And then he's building on the roots that we find in the Talmud, Torah, Yisrael, how's it go? Torah Yisrael right, Achadahu, maybe. But that idea, as Rabbi Shlomo Riskin points out, he says the sacred Zohar, which is a mystical work, teaches that God, the nation Israel, and the Torah are one. This suggests that God may be experienced through those phenomena that are also perceived to be eternal. Since Israel is eternal by divine oath, and since the Torah is eternal, God, Israel, Torah are inextricably linked by common eternity. So today, what we do, we have a period of study. We're going to learn as best I can, but remember, we're covering a wide area of material. If you've got the outline of the course already, but like I said, I'll send it out again to everybody. You will see that we cover a lot of territory, and we can only go so deep into it. We could spend days, literally days, on what I've just spent a few minutes on here tonight. Right? I can make you read Star of Redemption to get no, that would not be fair. It would not be fair. I've gotten 150 pages into it, then I quit. No. But anyway, so we are going to do this. We will do, and in this class, we will study the calendar, Jewish history, the Bible, rabbinic literature, the holidays, the practices of the holidays, kashrut, keeping kosher, observance of Shabbat, all of these kinds of things. You will, and also the Hebrew. You will have to review it. You will be tested on it. But more important is you got to be prepared to live with it and by it as best as you can.
Sorry, one question.
Yeah.
If the test will be for both of us or just?
Yes, both of you. But those of you who have a partner with you tonight, you will discover the Jewish partner has been my experience. When they come to this class, they learn a lot of things too that they didn't necessarily know. And I don't care if they went to day school or not. Okay? Generally speaking, it's not 100%, and I don't take this as an insult to anybody, please. somebody who has an intensive Jewish education, I mean, intensive Jewish education, probably would not be sitting around this table. Right? For the most part. Right? For whatever reasons, that's the reality of life. It doesn't mean somebody who went to yeshiva all their life doesn't end up falling in love with somebody and then saying, you know what, it's important that we have a Jewish home. But the opportunity for that to happen is less. That's all. Okay. Which rabbi was it? Wolpe? I remember at a dinner for a day school. This was in Detroit. He was talking. He just got married. He wasn't a youngster. He'd been out in the field for a few years already, but he didn't find the right woman until. He says, you know, why did I marry somebody who was Jewish? He says, not necessarily because it's important to me. Not necessarily because I didn't meet up with women who were certainly wonderful women who would make a wonderful wife. But who else is going to put up with Shabbat and Kashrut and the holidays and all of these things that I do? So it's the more you are involved Jewishly, the more you self-select people who are involved there already. That's life. So I think the reality is you will probably learn as well. And it's good to have a little competition. Don't assume you're going to do better on the test. Yes, generally speaking, you have a foot up, but it's only a foot. It's not a yard. It's a couple of centimeters, not a whole meter. I learned that's
Maybe a big toe.
a big toe. It depends. We'll see. You'll work it out. I don't say what kind of bets you can make, and I won't say if there's any handicapping that's allowed. But no, it's good for you to see what God willing you're learning. Oh no, I've had people get 100%. They're too easy. That's why they get 100%. You know, essay is easy. It's impossible. Yeah, but I think it's impossible to really mark well. You know, and I believe less is more. And I always write, if I write essays, I write very short ones. And my teachers have never been happy with that. They somehow think that there's greater wisdom in verbosity. But it isn't. If you can make your point and get to it right away, then and not have to rely on jargon also, that's another issue. Specialized jargon. I read titles of papers on Jewish subjects, and I have to decipher what the title is. I know it's talking about something Jewish, but I'm not sure what that means. It's really sometimes very strange. So many, you know. All right. So we will have. So here's what the course will take place. All right. So we have these various subjects. I want you to pay attention. I hope you'll do the readings. Most of the books are available in the bookstores. When we do the Bible, I want you to bring a Bible with you, or if you insist upon having it on your laptop or what have you, you can do that too. But it's easier to flip pages than it is to go on these things. Also, we talk about a prayer book, a siddur that you should have. Right? All those things, the various Jewish bookstores in town, most of them. If there's a couple of the books are not available now, and I don't know, I may have to come up with some kind of solution for that. When it comes to the Hebrew reading, the Hebrew course, I will supply you with the material for that. And all we're going to do is begin the process of teaching you how to decipher the letters and vowels. We're not going to be teaching you how to go order a pita without harif in the shuk. Okay, Anybody, somebody understood?
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Without spice anymore.
No spicy.
Yeah.
Rabbi,
But,
just
yeah.
a just a quick question on the books. Is there
Yes.
any particular order? Are there any that we need to prioritize getting for next
Well,
class?
if you look at the course outline, you will see that the readings are there. Okay? And if you follow that, you should be able to have an idea when you need which books. Okay?
I have a question
Yeah.
too. In the outline, you've got, like, for instance, today was becoming Jewish, page 1 to 39, and then entering Jewish period 3 to 39. Are we expected to read that prior to coming into the class?
I would hope you would.
Oh, thanks. I did.
Okay. So I think it would make helpful
It does,
to understand what we're talking about.
Is that going to be tested directly as well, like the books?
Well, the books are background. What you really need to, you're going to be tested basically what transpires in this room or line or whatever the case may be. So, but pay attention. And I know I throw a lot of things out at you, and I don't expect you to remember all of them. You'll have to learn to pick up on the most important things. All right. My little asides are not necessarily going to be on the exam. Okay? Like what my favorite bourbon is. I wouldn't put that on the exam. I'll tell you later, but no. Okay. We also, you will see that the order of the class is also related to the order of the calendar. We will study about the holidays prior to those holidays. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about Shabbat, because that's every week, and then Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. Talk about Hanukkah, then later on we'll talk about Purim, then we'll talk about Pesach, and then we'll talk about Shavuot as they go through the course of the year. Okay, and as I've alluded to, sometimes we have to go back and forth. The exams for each term will cover the material for that term, and only if it's something that overlaps in the next term will it could it be on the test. But for example, if the laws of Shabbat, well, they affect holidays, so there might be some crossover there. But when I talk about the book of Genesis, for example, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and their stories, come the spring, I'm not going to ask you questions about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, and we'll talk about Moses, talk about the Seder, that sort of thing. But so you don't go back. You have your, but when you finish this course, and or when your rabbi is satisfied that it's time for you to go before the Beit Din, they will make arrangements for a Beit Din. A Beit Din is a rabbinic court consisting of 3 rabbis. Normally what transpires is the 3 rabbis will ask you questions. They could ask you questions on anything and everything, sometimes do. But as I tell everyone, the most important questions concern your commitment and your commitment and your commitment. Everybody's in different intellectual levels, different abilities. Some people do PhD, some people are happy to get through high school, some people in between. Everybody's got their level, their thing. We're not assuming everybody's going to be the greatest scholar of Judaism when they go to the Beit Din. Okay? And so unless you choose not to learn anything, you should be able to pass the course. If you show commitment to Shabbat observance, to holiday observance, to kashrut, to building a Jewish life, for those of you who are in the possibility of having children, to raise children in the Jewish life, and you convince the Beit Din that that's what you are, and that's it. Right? Men have to be circumcised. If they're already circumcised, a drop of blood is drawn from the circumcision site. It's no big deal. It's like, for diabetes, 1, 2, 3. Although I remember when I was in college, I got very nervous about giving blood. My blood pressure would go down real low. So I made them, they had to take my blood pressure first before I let them prick my finger. Because I didn't want to get that finger pricked if I wasn't going to be able to get blood that day. So, but it's not really, it is no big deal. Now, depending upon the nature of the Beit Din, if it's a male Beit Din, traditionally had to be males, traditionally only men served on the courts. For men, that's not an issue. 3 men go into they take you to the mikveh, men go into the mikveh, they immerse themselves, etc. If it's a woman and the Beit Din consists of 3 males, what we do is there's a room on the outside of where the mikveh itself is. And I hope we'll be able to actually make the mikveh tour part of our thing. Haven't been able to do that a couple of years. There's some air vents way high up on the wall. I've never seen a rabbi tall enough to be able to see through those vents. I'm not sure that any basketball players either could do that. But it's enough so that the Beit Din in that room can hear what's going on in the room next door. And there's a woman in there with the woman for immersion. The woman can see. The man cannot see anything. All we can do is hear. That's all we can do is hear. And that's based, there's a statement in the Talmud directly that way. And I don't know, my Orthodox colleagues insist that they have to be in the mikveh. They do certain things so that they can't see, the woman turns away from them, or they have some kind of loose clothing or something. But they're wrong. And there's one case where I'm going to say my Orthodox colleagues are wrong to insist that the Beit Din has to be in there. The Talmud makes very clear that the Beit Din can be outside the mikveh and just observing that way through the ears. And there's a woman inside to do it. If you are your rabbi's more on the liberal side of the spectrum, and there may be women on the Beit Din, I don't know what they do. To be honest with you, I don't know how they handle it. I assume if the women on the Beit Din, they don't go inside with the men, and maybe the men go in, or whatever the case may be. Okay. And then, as I say, the hard part starts right when you get out of the water, living a Jewish life. Okay. Generally speaking, when I get tired, I send you home. Sometimes the material is such that we can finish it a little bit earlier. Sometimes the material is more. Sometimes you got questions, and please don't hesitate to ask questions. There's no such thing as a bad question. If you don't understand something, ask. You cannot learn unless you're willing to ask questions. In Pirkei Avos, it says, "Ein bashan lomed," a person who is bashful can't become wise. Okay? And Judaism is built upon pillars of questions. Sometimes the questions are much better than the answers. So somebody has to come up with a better answer later on. Okay? So are there any questions about what we're talking about tonight? Or the process that we're going to go through? Yeah.
So to be clear, every book on the required book readings, we're going to be reading outside class.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what happened is when we do the prayer book, we might do some reading. We'll do some readings in class together, maybe. Certainly when we do the Bible, I like to have other people read because some passages I want us to read. Again, like I said, if you if you want to use Sepharia, then you got a bunch of book texts online you can use. But I don't know.
The book list identifies the kind of Siddur and
Well, the booklet says that we recommend the Koran Siddur, the full Siddur with English translation for the daily and Shabbat. It's an Orthodox Siddur, but it's got everything in there, and there's just nothing else available in the conservative movement that really is quite as serviceable because you can go anywhere with it. You can go to a conservative synagogue, you can go to an Orthodox synagogue, you got all the prayers and everything there. In most of the synagogues here, I'm not sure what's going on in terms of which prayer books are being used today in the different synagogues. We recommend that there is the Art Scroll, which is also a full one. There are some of the, in the conservative movement, there are some relatively full, text, but there's use for that. We recommend the new JPS translation of the Bible, the Tanakh. Again, there is the Art Scroll has it. Okay, but get a Jewish translation. If you have an old King James Bible, King James, beautiful language. Some of it is very nice, and the English language it owes a tremendous amount to it. But it also is one based upon the Septuagint in large measure, which has certain axes to grind in certain places. And two, there are some very serious differences of opinion between Christian and Jewish understanding passages because of those translations. One that we will look at, which is very much in the news right now, it's in Exodus 22, I think it is. Two men are struggling, having a fight, and a pregnant woman comes by, and she gets hit, struck. What happens? What is the result of that? Who got hurt? What is the nature of that injury? Is who's alive? Who's dead? Who's what? That's translation issues, very serious ones. And the abortion debate, in many ways, is centered upon those few words in those lines. Or the prophet, and we will look at it in Isaiah. There is a woman who is pregnant. What is the word used there? The word in Hebrew is alma, not betula. So is she an alma? Is she just a young woman of a certain age? Or is she a betula? Is she a woman who's never had sexual relations? And that's where the whole Christian idea of the virgin birth comes from, that translation. On the other hand, you can make arguments. There's a place where the word betula, virgin, is used, and it is not talking about a virgin. It's talking about a young woman who's been married. So even there, there can be arguments on both sides. I like to show this. So that, and then the other texts are texts that we want you to get. The one that's not available, I'm pretty sure these days, the one on mikvah, which is, it is available again?
I got it online.
Got it online.
They didn't have it at Israel.
Israel's doesn't have it. You get it
Carry
online.
No, they won't.
It's not that you won't carry it. They said they can't get it.
Can't get it, but you can get it on Amazon.
Okay. No, I'll finish with this. There is a book. I don't remember the title of it. I wish I did. Which was written by the son of one of these great Orthodox rabbis, who told about his father in a very nice way. But he's a man. He had his foibles. He had this and that. When it came out, it was condemned by certain individuals in the Orthodox world. It was a whole to-do, and you might be able to find it on Amazon. It may cost you $1,500 to $1,600 if you can find it on Amazon. But they do have lots of things there. And yeah, most of the Jewish texts they do have available on Amazon. Okay. Yeah. If you didn't see it, I haven't seen it, I recorded it. This past week was on CNN about anti-Semitism. CNN reports, I think it's probably worthwhile taking a glance at it. And then of all times, it's Friday night at 11. You can set your timers for that. One on the Holocaust Museum, also on CNN. You may find that of interest.
What should we bring for next time?
For next time, I say bring a calendar. I think that's all that I put down on there. That's okay. We're ready to call it quits. If you have a calendar, if you can get one, but some give them away some places.
Kids print one?
What?
Worst case print one or?
Yeah, or you can print one off, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, thank you.
You see, again, that shows you my age. And when I first started, I've been teaching this for a long time. Who had, you wanted a calendar, you had to have a calendar. You might get it for free, but it was a calendar, piece of paper. Who had these phones with their calendars and the Hebrew dates and everything on it? The prayer books and the Talmud, what have you. But we're going to talk about the nature of the month, of the Jewish calendar, how the calendar is derived. As I say in it, why is Rosh Hashanah late this year? Or early this year? Or when is it this year?
It's never on time.
That depends on what you're looking at. It always falls on the first day of the month of Tishrei. So it all depends on how you're looking at it. But yeah, we will talk about why the solar calendar and lunar calendar are different. And maybe some show and tell, some pictures of moons. I don't. Okay. All right, everybody. Same time, same bat station next week.
I just have one quick question.
Yes.
So I was
What's the
able to
question?
grab the list of books off of the website, but I, for the life of me, cannot find the course outline. Is it possible to get that emailed?
I will email everybody. I'm going to email everything out to everybody, I think.
Fantastic.
And either print it off or punch the delete button. Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, if anybody has their registration forms, those who I didn't have the names initially, didn't get your forms. Did you turn them into that setting?
Yep.
Well, that's the same way. They gave you too early starting time and they didn't pass the forms on to you. Okay.
Thank you again.
All right. All right.
So next.
Okay.
Is there a way to
All right,
check
so
the
I
list?
will try and, God willing, I will have this working.
Okay.
So if you want to try and follow
Yeah,
then, or I will post it to, and I'll send out information to YouTube channel.
so maybe I can email you the link in advance, and if you have it, great.
Yeah,
If
well, I
not,
will, what I plan on doing is, just see, I don't even know.
You want to end the meeting?
Yeah.